was a good
Well,
jam.
I chose the wrong instrument tonight, maybe.
I thought that sounded great. It was in rhythm and everything from what I was hearing. Not that anybody else hears that.
Both Jen and I had cutting tools, though. Guess what mine was?
Couldn't hear it over
It
mine.
was a hard-boiled egg slicer.
Oh, very nice.
Wait, show that again. Ooh, nice.
It's a hard-boiled egg slicer. I got it at the dollar store. You can make fancy. You hard-boil the eggs, and then you slice them into nice little beautiful slices, and then you fan them out on your salad, and it looks like you know what you're doing.
Again with the cutting tools. Aren't you going to hurt yourself?
Pretty sure I won't.
You're not using your fingers. I thought you.
I'm pretty sure I won't cut myself on this thing.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Hi.
It's like a horror movie implement.
It is. That jam was like a horror movie score.
Yeah.
Well,
Sorry about the overly loud power tool.
Happy
Wow.
Thanksgiving weekend.
Yes. Happy
I had my-
Thanksgiving weekend,
Yes, indeed.
everybody.
Glenn says the next TLB album will be called Power Tools. It's like a Rush tribute.
Right.
Instead of power windows, power tools, you see.
Yeah, and it's a play on how what dorks we are.
Although I think we'll just call it tools.
Exactly.
Because mine's not powered. And tools seems totally appropriate somehow, right?
Yes.
Right.
All of us. Just a tool bag.
Cool bag. That's even better.
That's the album we're going to start working on?
Yeah.
At the beginning of the year, tool bag.
Tool bag.
Well, I'm going to talk about a few things before we get started, but just welcoming everybody. This is Outside the Inn, the Travis Larson Band Q&A, generally somewhat weekly session. Although last week I had a show, a virtual show that was in place of that because the exact time that they wanted to do the virtual show was when we would do this show. And I hadn't done a Saturday show since I think the beginning of all this stuff anyway. So I thought it would be a fun experiment. But last week was the Can't Stop the Blues set that I did. And I want to thank all the TLBers for showing up to that because part of the idea behind it was to go there and see if, there was maybe a different audience. But all the TLBers went there and hung out with me, which made me, feel nice and secure, and I recognized all the names. What's that? Warm and fuzzy. Yes. So thanks for coming and hanging out with me last Saturday, where I played as most of the slower and kind of more bluesy TLB material. Nothing really qualifies as straight blues, although Glenn mentioned if I had played Georgia it would have been legitimate, but I can't do Georgia without Jen. So I did People Get Ready, which is sort of bluesy, sort of in that that category.
It was a great show.
But
it sounded good. You did a good job, and it sounded and looked good.
Jen did a fantastic job in the control room of making it seem interesting with the 4 webcams and 1 laptop cam that we have in here.
Yeah, always a challenge.
The reason it looks so good is
when they freeze up in the middle of this show.
It's these umbrellas behind me. That's what make it look so good. So just so people have perspective, I'm sitting like if you guys watched any of those live streaming concert from the Treehouse, I'm sitting with my back towards where you would see me every time. So if you watch those and you see the big computer screen that says the TLB logo on it, usually that's what I'm facing right now. That's what I'm watching you guys on, just so people have perspective. And I don't know. Sometimes I geek out on that stuff when I watch guys do videos, and I sit there and I go, okay, well, this is his studio, but where is this and where's that? So that's what's happening. Tonight, though, after a few more things here, tonight we're moving on with the album discussion. And tonight would be a discussion about the making of Rate of Change, which was the album after Burn Season. So that's what we'll get to here in a minute. But I wanted to mention a couple of things. One is, thanks to Chief Graphic Designer and General Merch Practitioner Jennifer Young, we now have
Good
the
title.
Morse Circle TLB logo on all kinds of different kinds of cool swag, which I'm really excited about.
Me too. That's a good logo.
So I posted that in the description of this feed. If you go to the artist shop, and I also posted it in the top of the chats here. Actually, I was late, and it's like the 6th or 7th comment or something like that. But you can go find that. You can also find a post on the Facebook pages that I did, I think, yesterday for the big Black Friday sale that everybody gets so excited about. I remember one time Jen and I, when we were, do you remember, Dale, when we played with Ronnie Montrose up in, was it, where did we play?
It was in the valley somewhere. Was it Stockton?
Was it Stockton, Jen?
It's close to there,
Seems
but
like
I don't know if
Fresno
that was
to me.
No, it wasn't Fresno. It wasn't
Bakersfield?
Fresno. No, it was north of that. It might have been Stockton. It was the Fox Theater, I think. Was it called Fox Theater? Modesto? No. Modesto's south, right?
It was
Modesto.
No, UFO was Modesto. Was this also Modesto?
I can't remember. Anyway. We played with Ronnie Montrose one weekend, so because we were up there doing that, and Jen and I had a couple of solo shows, we did, or so well, I say solo, meaning the musicians and not the drummer. Obviously, if Jen was there, they weren't solo shows. They were musician shows.
They were duet shows.
Yes, duet shows.
Yeah, Jen and I did a couple of duo shows, and then we had, but it was on Thanksgiving weekend, so I think we played like maybe a couple of nights after Thanksgiving weekend, and then, or after Thanksgiving during the weekend, like Friday and Saturday maybe, and then Sunday might have been the Montrose show. I can't remember what it was, but Jen and I ended up in San Francisco on Black Friday is the point. And we just dove head first into the whole thing. We're like, well, let's go down to the Costco. Let's get into the middle of all this madness. Let's watch the crazy people.
I think it was Walmart.
Was it?
It was even crazier. Yes.
Perfect.
Let's go to Walmart on Black Friday back in.
On the intersection of the 580 and the 680, like right in one of those huge shopping centers. Yeah, like right where, just right in the middle of it all, you know, it was all crazy. So, so we completely experienced Black Friday. That was the one and only time that I ever fully just dove in, and we did Black Friday like while everyone else was doing it, and we didn't just sit home and order online. But that was you got to do everything once. I like to get into it, you know.
You don't really have to do that one. But it's good. But it's good that you did. If you did, then you should talk about it. But
Chuck says State Theater with a question mark. That sounds right.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
I think that was it. So anyway, so I wanted to mention the merch. We have hoodies. I'm really excited about the black zip up hoodies with the big TLB Morse circle on the back. I'm going to get me one of them. I'm really excited about it.
If I get one though, then I just won't bring them on tours though, because then I don't want to look like we're twins or something accidentally.
And I wanted to mention a couple of super fans tonight. Today is Hala's birthday, so happy birthday, Hala!
Happy birthday,
happy
Hala!
birthday!
Cool.
And
Nice.
So, hi Hala. I don't know if you're watching, but
if it's her birthday, she's probably doing something far more interesting.
Yeah, right.
I have a little bit of echo, Jen. I'm just letting you know. Also, Mary, like East Coast Mary, Boston, our friend Mary.
Right.
It's her birthday on Monday, which is the same day that my birthday is.
Woo!
On Monday. So
happy early birthday, Mary and Travis.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Mary and
originally, the plan would have been next weekend. I was going to do 2 nights. In Morro Bay, California, they always do the boat parade, the lighted boat parade every year for the Christmas stuff, you know. And that little place that I do those solo shows where sometimes Jen comes and jams with me and other people. The back of the stage is all glass, and you can literally see the whole bay from like right there. So I had it all planned next weekend. We would like go do the boat parade, you know, play a show after the boat parade and hang out. And so now next week we're gonna have to come up with something interesting to talk about, like the next record,
Right.
which is exciting too. But
Yeah, I have a show and tell.
oh, okay, I'm still hearing that, Jen.
Yeah, I am hearing some slapback too.
Really?
Sorry.
I have it down like I can barely hear you guys. I swear.
no.
Just get it maybe away from the computer, or
It
can you do
is.
that? Oh, okay.
So
Hello?
yeah, if I don't hear you, just I'll just try
Sorry.
to read your lips.
So I've shared this before. This is an elaborate Lego vehicle that was made for me by a student. It's a cold weather vehicle, and the guy has a ice saw and a like a dart syringe. And the point is, he's an archaeologist, and he's looking for fossils. And the person who gave it to me said, if anything is alive, he'd want this syringe. By the way, he gave me some hair for the guy instead of the cold weather hat, but I'm going to put the cold weather hat on him. Okay, so back to the guy doesn't need hair. Back to the cold weather hat. Anyway, the point is, it was updated recently. He must have thought the syringe wasn't enough if he found a live dinosaur. Gave me this freaking rotary, looks like a 50 caliber machine gun. So I had to share that he now has a stout weapon.
Wow.
Wow.
Also, now you guys may not know this. It shoots. It
Oh wow.
Wow.
Oh
if
my
I
gosh.
hold one end and rotate it, it shoots.
And this is a Lego product?
It is. It's Legos.
These were not the Legos of our day.
Not at all. I
Just
mean, this sort of
mentioning.
sits around various parts of the room and nobody notices it. But once this gun got on there, even teenage students have been like, that's a nice gun on that car. Everybody notices it now.
Welcome to America.
Yep. Anyway, I had to share that. It was like this weeks later. His car's just been sitting here, and he must have every lesson just been going, that syringe is not going to be enough. He went home and got a gun.
So here's the question. The real question is, did the student build this thing for you in the custom way that it is, or was it one of those like packages where you are to build this car that a archaeologist drives?
I'm looking at it, and I feel like it's pretty custom. There's some unexplainable things about it. Like I think this is just in the generous gift category, but there's some $100 bills incorporated into it right there.
Wow.
And because you might need some money or something. And this, I've never been able to fully explain the drop tailgate, what purpose that serves. So I think it's just a lot of features in one vehicle. It doesn't seem very much like a Lego designer came up with it. It seems custom.
So you think he does a custom design to this just for you?
Yeah, I do. Yes.
That's really sweet.
It is.
So here's you got to have the walk up in the back, by the way, because you have the gun. That's the guy gets out of the car, walks around the back, stands on the ramp, and runs the gun, right?
And yeah, now it does. But before, it just had like some valuable things like a goblet and $100 bills and stuff. So they were just sweet gestures as a gift.
Sam says, how old is that student? Says 10 cute, 50 creepy. I'm going to say the student's probably 35.
Right. We're talking. There's a drummer adjustment you make in this math.
Yeah, exactly. There's drummer age versus regular age, Sam. It's like dog years,
and it can go both ways.
The opposite. Yeah,
and it could go both ways because the person could be well adjusted, but think I would enjoy that as a drummer, even if they're a 50-year-old normal adult. He's a drummer. He'll like a like.
How old is the student?
He's 8-ish. I don't want to be too specific. The little guys get they take it hard when you mess up their age.
Okay. Oh yeah, sure.
Jocko says a solar panel.
Yeah.
There you go. I like that.
Right.
Cool.
To power the.
Anyway, that gun had to be shared.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Couple other things I want to mention in our first little bit here. Hendrix's birthday was yesterday, so anybody that didn't catch I actually posted as a single video the Little Wing cover that I did with Larry Mitchell and Jen Majura a couple of live stream concerts ago. And everybody was asking if there was a way to get that. So that has now been posted. You can find that on the Facebook page and on our YouTube page and on the TLB Instagram. There's actually an Instagram. that we sometimes occasionally pay attention to.
On
Well,
tour, it's
you
red
guys
hot
don't,
on
because I
tour.
looked at yours yesterday when I was posting it and realized you guys haven't posted anything since like the first Aristocrats tour.
Early on, yeah, it was like full of posts from tours, and then nothing in between. And then once Devin wasn't on the tour, I wasn't posting. It was just him elbowing me, going, "Got to post something. Just post something.
Got
Doesn't
to
matter."
get on that
Something.
gram.
Yep.
Got to get on that gram, Dale.
So sorry for my inactive Instagram.
So anyway, but in honor of Jimmy's birthday yesterday, I posted the Lil Wing cover. So you can go check that out. That was a lot of fun. And one more thing I wanted to mention, our good friend Matt came out with a beautiful article in Guitar Player magazine that just came out this last week. And here I'm going to try and select myself here. So this is the tribute article on Eddie. And sorry, I just realized my address is on that sticker. Don't go look at that later.
Great.
Actually, I think, yeah, sure. That's my address. Go ahead and go to that address.
Yeah, go ahead and go to that address.
Just knock on the door. Anyway, so Matt did a beautiful article on Eddie and really talked a lot about some of the things, that I've talked about this a lot, of kind of the ripple effect of the article is really, every review on Eddie's playing and gear and technique and career and all that stuff has already been said. So it's a really beautiful article about what would the world be if there was no Eddie, based on more of the ripple effect type of idea. And the truth is that none of us here would even be talking to each other. And that is kind of more of the importance of what that music meant. And, I guarantee you that, none of us right here would even know each other if it weren't for Eddie Van Halen. So
Yeah.
that's kind of amazing. And Matt and I had a really beautiful conversation the other day where we talked for a long time about all this stuff. I wouldn't get into, too many details of that, but he's a really, really good-hearted guy who really did a beautiful job on that and really poured his heart into it. And so if anyone wants to pick up the new issue of Guitar Player magazine and check out Matt's tribute to Eddie, that would be cool.
Yay.
Other than that,
Can I borrow yours?
you can borrow mine. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll hand it through the bubble.
Right. Okay.
Remember John Travolta in Bubble Boy?
Right. Yeah.
So,
As Devin would say, timely reference.
Exactly. Fresh as today's headlines. Does anybody have anything they want to add before we get into Rate of Change, the album from 2007?
I don't think so.
I have a joke.
Okay.
Go.
Because just last Friday, I believe, was my dad's 80th birthday. So, what did the pirate say on his 80th birthday?
What?
Aye, matey.
That was a real laugh from me. I thought that was
That's funny.
It was.
Anyways, that's all.
I'm not going to go into what the COVID brain, we're calling it COVID brain because you're locked down and you're basically living on screens all the time and you start to process. But I don't want to let you know how long it took me to get that to click.
To get that.
I laughed the second it clicked. I was like, huh? What?
Took me a couple of seconds for that to burn in. I'm like, matey, that's what pirates say, right? What's funny about that?
Right.
All right. So last time we talked about an album, which was several weeks ago because we had Joe Travers on, and then last week we had the live stream guitar show. We talked about Burn Season. Burn Season, as we mentioned, was kind of the first album that we really started production-wise making steps where we felt like we were actually making kind of an album closer to what we would want to make. And so Rate of Change, 2 years later, I think Rate of Change is actually 2006. Is that right, Jen?
Yep.
2006. I said 7. So Rate of Change was kind of taking a lot of what we learned with Burn Season and upgrading a few things. This was the first album where we mentioned on Burn Season, if anyone missed that Jen and I tracked on a hard disk recorder for that album. So on Rate of Change, we actually upgraded to like a personal Pro Tools rig at the home studios, that's where we tracked all the instruments, all the stringed instruments and keyboards and whatnot. And then we still tracked Dale at the big studio. But using Pro Tools, again, it was enabled us to get even further into the production scheme. I also remember guitar tone wise, I used some modeling on Burn Season, and that was early modeling. And modeling was so back then. It's got a sound to it, but it's not necessarily the sound I was looking for. It's okay. And it kind of sounds like that record now to me, but there's things about it that I would have liked to change sonically with the guitars specifically. And so on Rate of Change, I got a deal back then with Randall when they were using those modules, which were licensed by Ignator. And you could get like 3 or 4 modules for a single amp head, and they would sound like different preamps of amps. And what I did back then was I ran that amp head into a speaker simulator in the apartment studio and recorded all the guitars with that, which were actual tube amps. So that's why that album, guitar-wise, sounds quite a bit different. Are you reading comments, Jen?
Maybe.
There's a funny heckle.
I'm just laughing. I'm just so happy to be here. I was just laughing. I was looking at Dale and I was chuckling because he just cracks me up.
Yeah, I'm always moving around and fidgeting and adjusting lights. You
and Gino are twinsies, he says, because he's wearing his Guitar Sanctuary shirt.
Nice.
Yay.
Nice. Hey, Gino. There's a funny comment from, because we've been going long on these, and Anthony says, there are 12 songs already changed. You might want to pace yourselves.
Yeah.
I think it means pace yourselves. Keep it moving.
You're right.
Yeah.
In the other direction.
I was cracking up.
Well, so we could get right into, I have production pictures with that, which we could get into, but do you guys want to say kind of an overall impression going into Rate of Change? We're still okay. We're only like 23 minutes.
No, I'm not. I had my overall blanket memory of this album is that you mentioned that you were doing Pro Tools instead of that Yamaha hard disk thing you had at home. And it was also, to me, this is when you and Jen both just stepped up to being complete, fully functional engineers. Like by the time we were tracking drums, either one of you could just sit there and handle recording drums, playing me back, take 1, take 19, take 3, and all the editing that needed to happen. And I do remember you guys both sort of came of age as engineers right then.
I just want to mention, well, before he goes, John Kenny is on here, and actually John Kenny is in the some of the photos from this time period. Nice. I think the very first Rate of Change gig was a clinic at his store, Fault Line Music, back in the day, to get warmed up before we played an actual show. I did a clinic there, so he was. I saw him in the archives today when I was kind of going through this stuff. But cool. Jen, overall thoughts on Rate of Change, just to start?
I would agree with Dale. It seemed like that was one of the first records where, Kip basically just handed the studio over to us and was like, okay. I mean, once everything was mic'd up and running. And so, we were definitely engineering that whole record. As far as just, I don't know. It was a weird time kind of in a way for me. So I don't have a whole lot of memory of Rate of Change other than just, as usual, the album titles tend to speak to what's going on for me. And I guess that was a time when I was just tripping on how time it was changing and flying and all that stuff. The rate of change at which things were happening. And so
Well,
Yeah.
let me grab into some of these photos here. I noticed one thing looking at some of this stuff, that this was like the last album where we all really looked fantastic.
I remember looking like absolute hell on the album photo.
Well, that could
That
be
was
true, right?
that. Yeah, that was
You guys look great. I mean, I was
unfortunate.
sort of overweight right then, but there was a whole bunch of pictures like, I can live with that. I can live with that. As long as it's not that one, but it ended up having to be that one.
Yeah, the album photo was an unfortunate. I'm sorry, Dale. There's
I should have been 30
story to
pounds
that.
lighter and I would have been fine.
These are obviously not the fantastic photos because this is when we were working, but you can see the gear in the background there, though. That gives you
a
time
CRT.
frame. Well, it gives you a time frame into what we were dealing with the Pro Tools that we had. Here's some shots these are shots we didn't use for the Rate of Change artwork, which,
Right.
just to clarify once and for all for everybody, the shot that we used for Rate of Change, Jen is flipping a coin because Rate of Change, okay? But she's holding her hand kind of low, and everyone always thinks that she's like doing, like, there's that picture of Luke where he holds his finger out and it makes it look like I have a little tiny peepee. And it looks like she's doing something like that. Everyone thinks it's like a joke, but she was flipping a coin.
Right.
Just to make that clear. So
and then those shots, Dale's doing the flipping of the coin, which probably in hindsight is better that we didn't use him doing it.
Right. So there's
the coin would be photoshopped in later. You see, we weren't actually doing the flipping of the coin at the time. That would have been too hard to capture. The studio is notorious for being so dark in there. The Avalon Studios. It's so hard to photograph in that room, and we did a poor job here, sadly.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
I mean, it came out okay. It's just funny because the joke, the way the actual.
That's a picture of Travis looking down at me like, knock it off. The one before this one. That's me.
Yikes.
And we were all shiny. What is up with that?
It's because we had all these lights on us in these shots. That's why these shots aren't as dark. But we've got a little bit of, if you remember back on Conan O'Brien, in the year 2000.
Right.
It's a little bit like that. And there I am getting my gear together. This is back when the pedal boards were like 6 feet long, literally.
Oh, and the Electro Voice cabs.
Yeah, those are Electro Voice custom 412 cabs way back in the day. They weighed 150 pounds each. And the most recent one of those that went away was we played in Reading a couple times ago, and I sold the last one that I had to the guitar player for who's the guy that does Hammer Time? Hammer Time. Do.
MC Hammer.
MC Hammer. Yes, thank you. I told you. COVID.
You had all but 2 letters.
Well, I thought it was like a trick question for a minute there.
So MC Hammer's guitar player has one of those cabs now.
That's great.
There's Jen, because she was starting to have back problems in the studio, I think, right?
Oh yeah, from sitting for so long. Yeah.
So we got her.
I got one of them big ball things.
We stole a giant red ball from the front of Target.
Right. Yeah. Look at how easily I picked that thing up too.
Yep.
Anyway.
So there we are, of course, in our usual spots, which we're going to start working towards getting closer to getting in that usual spot soon, right?
Mm-hmm. No one's mentioned Dale's hair. Dale had his long hair still.
This was the last of Dale's hair because Rate of Change Live, which is the live DVD from the tour from this album, he had cut his hair.
Yep. And everyone thought we had a different drummer when he walked on stage.
2 weeks before that show, right?
That's I think that's the Rhodes 88, which I have right next to me, which is a 1971 Mark IV Rhodes 88, I believe, is what that is. Oh, there it is. That board in the background there, you've heard it mentioned a few times, but I'll just mention it because Kip would like me to. That board is we use for preamps on the drums, and that was built by the engineer for the Grateful Dead back in like 1969 or something like that. By the way, has anybody seen the Zappa movie yet? Just to sidetrack while we're going through these pictures.
I haven't. No.
No.
I haven't. I know, but I see that it's available, so
Yeah,
I got to
me
get
too.
into that. I think
Somebody
it's on
asked me.
iTunes and other platforms you can rent movies on now. So there's Jen making sure that we stay organized. I always like that cool football shirt, Jen. Whatever happened to that football shirt?
I don't know. You
That was
know
a-
how these things
That's
go.
a cool shirt. Well, it was 07, so you probably just wore it that year, right?
No. I probably wore it till it shrank too. Oh, great. Till
Is
it
this what
got
it
too
looks
little
like?
in the dryer.
So it looks like about 2 a.m. when we're on like when we're editing drums. That's usually what this looks like, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's my brother Gil.
Oh, okay. Well, who's that? Oh, cool.
He's in the occasional picture. There's Kip, which everybody knows and loves, who he would come in occasionally, make sure that we weren't screwing anything up.
Yep.
Or we would call him more likely when we did screw something up.
Or sometimes you would be running things flawlessly and the power would have issues and we would have to
Oh my
cycle
God.
things on
I
and
do
off and
remember
figure out-
that now that you mention it. Yes. The power supply on that board failed often.
Mhm.
There's a picture like this on every record. And look at Kip's shirt.
Don't panic.
Oh, got it.
That's from the Hitchhiker's Guide. I think it's kind of small to the galaxy.
Yeah, but the look on my face, and then Jen's like in the back just trying to stay zen. I think,
Yeah.
right?
That's right.
Oh, there's a good one too. Right?
Yeah.
That's what
There
what
was
the
some
producers
serious
do.
problems going on
Yeah,
right there.
I was taking those and nobody ever takes them except Jen. And I was taking those shots and I remember Kip just putting up his hand and going, no, please, not now. Like, no, don't. That's not, no.
Yeah, something bad was happening.
Yeah.
So yeah, lots of pictures
All right.
of us just
Keep
here
on
doing our
moving on.
thing.
What do we got? Kip, Dale.
What's going on there?
You're pulling off headphones.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay, that was a silhouette, poorly lit silhouette.
No, that's John Smith.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
hey,
Jen's-
rig.
That's that was back Jen's old rig, which weighed like 1,000,000 pounds.
Oh, look
Before-
at the Phaetar pedals.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
there's a shot of Jen's old pedal board we were talking about when she used to use MIDI triggers and be able to play, like actual piano parts and stuff with her feet.
That's a great
Yeah.
perspective right there. Like, that's standing up. That would be taller than Jen if she stood up as her pedal board.
Yeah.
Right.
That's great.
Oh, this is a good one. I don't know exactly what's going on here, but I saw this for the first time today. Like I didn't remember this picture, but what exactly?
That's me going, what is wrong with you?
Yeah, exactly what that is.
What exactly is going on here? And look at Kip's laughing his ass off.
Oh, the donuts.
So everyone understands the traditional last night of mixdown when we know we're actually finally done with the record completely is we walk down the street to the donut shop and we get donuts and maple bars. And that's the only time that Kip will ever have donuts and kind of the only time that I will ever have donuts. So,
I think Maple Bar is a donut.
yeah, but I'm just saying I'm differentiating because maple bars are special.
Oh,
So
all right.
So that's
Keep
what
it
we
moving
do
along here.
that's what
There
we
we
do
go.
at the end of our albums.
Nice.
We're gonna have donuts. So one thing I was going to mention, well, we could go through the songs individually, and I guess I'll do that before because I have a few things I was going to mention about specific songs and how they were created.
Sure.
The technology back then was much less. Now we have we were mentioning MIDI drums and stuff, but back in those days, we would literally, some songs you would program a drum beat on that drum machine that I showed last time. The what is that? Alesis something, Dale?
Yeah, at least it's SR16.
Yeah. So I would program that, record beats into Pro Tools, and then chop them up to use them as like a easy template to create different time signatures for different sections, things like that, instead of actually having a way to set up. I mean, that was like a really weird way to, well, not a weird way, but a difficult way to do it down the road, because then you couldn't line it up to any kind of MIDI stuff inside Pro Tools.
Right.
And if you actually use the MIDI clock in Pro Tools, you can create click tracks for Dale and all kinds of things. It makes it easier to edit. You can sequence, keyboard parts, all this stuff. But back on that, we would literally record like a beat off of a drum machine and then chop it up and make templates for songs to jam to and create stuff. But and that was
so then that's weird, because then didn't you have a little bit of drift of the
I would literally go through, so I would have everything to one tempo on the drum machine. Then I would create a click track on the drum machine. I would literally go through and have to like make sure everything was lined up to the click track, like analog.
And you wouldn't be 16th of a beat off by the end of the song. Like you could do finish tracks.
I would manually take section by section and make sure it stayed lined up, is what I'm telling you.
Yeah, I get that. It's just hard to believe that it actually stayed lined up. Wow.
Well, I would manually line it up.
Yeah, I see.
Like you got 4 bars. If you line that up, it's not going to drift. You know what I mean?
Within 4 bars. But if
I don't mean
bigger chunks.
I don't mean the tempo drifting. What I mean is when I use a click on the album. When I use the click on the album, I'm using the demo click. Right. So even if it did drift, I would just be playing to that. Okay.
Right.
Now I'm on board. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, correct. Let's see here. I'm going to find the audio files here. Sorry, guys. Here we go. All right. So you guys see that?
Yep.
So we'll start with Sticks and Stones, which is the first track on the record. And I have quite a bit to say about that, but here's Sticks and Stones. So that's bass solo and guitar solo going into the chorus. That reminds me, that's like one of my favorite bass solos on any of our records, kind of.
Yeah, the live version of it's awesome too.
Like that was here. I'm gonna see if I can back out of this without. So that's like there's like some great bass solos on Burn Season and stuff too, but I remember that last bass solo being like really, really hot. Like, and I think everybody got slightly better tones on this record too. Like the tones on this record are like, again, a step ahead, where it started to sound more and more like an actual album that was made by people with money, you know? But I was going to say
notes here of what you used. Intro BOTQ. I guess that means the boutique, the Randall. I don't know, 4x12, plexi, axis, rhythm, guitars, left the same, the rhythm right, XTC, Brit 4x12, Washburn, hollow body.
Wow.
Did you know all of that?
No. So you're saying, it sounds like, guessing from what just from what I remember of making that record. So one half of the rhythm side, the 2 guitars are split left and right. for the main rhythm guitars and the intro arpeggio and that stuff. Well, the intro arpeggio is one guitar. I remember that. But the dun, 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 so one side of that is the Luke Blue Axis, which is like the Eddie Van Halen model. And the other side is a hollow body Washburn Blues King guitar, which is like a cheap kind of knockoff, looks like B.B. King's guitar. And that's actually, that guitar is a living room guitar. It's like a couch guitar that used to sit in the living room, and it was just something to pick up. But it's a hollow body, so you could get like a really kind of ballsy tone out of it, kind of that like that Ted Nugent unwieldy, it would get out of control really fast. So I split the two on that. And then when you're talking about the plexi, that must be the modules, and the 412 is the speaker simulator. Now this is some lo-fi stuff. The speaker simulator in a Digitech GNX4 is what we used for the speaker simulator, not something in Pro Tools back then, but we actually ran it through a GNX4 as just a speaker simulator. So we were using the Randall module amp heads and running those through a GNX4, which is just, it's a Digitech pedal board from back in those days. The other interesting thing about this song specifically, and it's the only one I specifically remember, there's a drum pattern, because the GNX4 has a drum pattern on it. Well, it has a drum machine on it, I should say, that you can practice to. And there's a drum pattern, I think, just called Prague or something like that. And that was what I wrote the intro to this song to. And then Dale completely wrote a different drum part that just was had fills and toms in it. This other thing was just this bombastic loop. It was just this like boom, 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 or something like that. Right. And then I played played that arpeggio over it. And then Dale took that and actually wrote a part and made it interesting. And we did the thing where we locked up the bass and the drums, kind of like Geddy and Neil used to do, where I'm playing a constant part on the guitar, just an arpeggio, and then Jen's locking up with the drums here and there in various ways, right?
Yep, right.
So, and that just constantly changes. Hey, Larry Mitchell.
Yep.
Yay, Larry.
He liked the details. I think you might have been reacting to your list of session notes, Jen.
Yeah.
I do have one of the working titles listed here. 11th Hour was a possible title for that song.
For just that song specifically?
Hang on to that. That's not bad.
Yeah, exactly.
I know.
Well, we shouldn't give those things away.
Yes, I have my big fat notebook, my rate of change notebook here with all of my.
See how fat that is.
Oh, it's kind of a fatty.
Yeah.
They got littler as time went on, because I think we kind of, I got less organized somehow. So, like, Annika's like this big.
Yeah.
Or just maybe we know what we're doing better. And I used to write down everything. Like, I have these little track sheets right here. Hang on. You can see my track sheets where I keep track of all the tracks. And, yeah. Anyways, it's not so much like that anymore. Anyways.
Well,
right.
Well, it also, part of the reason for that is because it's with digital technology, it's easier to keep track. Like we're not doing as much analog patching anymore. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, we keep little notes like what setting did I use on this thing, but it's like, for instance, using the modelers that we use now, you can actually save the one just from that song. And so you find at the end of the record, you've just loaded up a device with all these titles of this is what you used until the record's done, and then you delete all that stuff,
Yeah, and I think back then, you would set something a certain way, or you just needed to know which amp module you were using and kind of where it was set and which guitars you chose and all of that stuff. And
yeah, exactly. All right.
I remember on this song being slightly surprised how the thing you just talked about, Travis, where there were like short bursts of double kick on the drums. Like we had done double bass parts like Barrage à Trois and stuff. And then just the fact that there was little flurries that weren't continuous. Some people who were into heavier music who were a little younger than me just really latched onto that as it kind of defined a whole genre, And to us, it was just like, Dale played a few like flurries. But I remember Jim and Devin both kind of going, yeah, that's cool proggy thing, And in my mind, as an old guy, proggy is a little more jazzy. But that was like a heavy prog thing that stood out among everything else we had done for that small little tiny reason.
That's because I used that GNX4 preset to write to called Prague.
That's right. I know. I was calling back to that. The other thing I remember about that song specifically is how hard it was. There was something about the pattern I was playing in the choruses that started to sound really redundant really fast, even though I liked the pattern. And there was I didn't want to make it all complicated, and I didn't want to like build on it and make it busier every time. And then the whole outro is like that. It's just chorus after chorus, if I'm remembering it right.
Yeah.
And I remember it being really, really challenging mentally. It's like classic TLB thing where I wasn't trying to play something hard. I was just trying to not repeat myself. And it got harder and harder not to repeat myself as I went. Yeah. And then I remember also like maybe 6 months later when we were doing the song live, I had totally fallen back into just repeating myself. And I heard a live thing. I was like, ugh. That is exactly what I was trying to avoid.
Right.
So I did the mental work and I tried to memorize the whole, it's like a third of the song, that whole long outro,
Yeah.
Anyway.
It was fun to bring that back for the 20th anniversary tour before last too, because we hadn't played a lot of this stuff in a long time. Because when we did this record, we were kind of so proud of that and Burn Season as being, two records that we really thought were kind of getting somewhere, that we played that material to death.
Yeah.
So, and then there was a DVD, and then we toured on the DVD. And so we played that material for a long time. So it was interesting to dig back into like that song, particularly as an opening tune for the 20th anniversary tour.
Yep.
In 2018, right? Is when that was. All right. Let's see. Moving on to.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Dale.
Oh, I just didn't. I was going to ask Jen if she had specific thoughts about the song, but. No, yeah, okay. Fair enough.
I can't actually see Jen right now, so she's got to say no. If I
no, I don't have any specific thoughts about that song.
Okay.
She gave me
I like playing that song.
She gave me the hostage video head shake. Nope, I'm fine.
All right, you guys can see this, right?
What's next?
Up in Arms.
Yep.
Oh.
Which is kind of another heavier song than we'd done before, I think. So what's interesting about that tune, in just a personal note, is Jen's mom, who very much just grew up like she was, Elvis and the Everly Brothers and stuff like that. Jen's mom's favorite song on the record. Huh. That one right there.
Really? I don't remember that. Okay.
Yep. Because she liked kind of the Indian harmony part.
It had a good beat. She used to say.
But she liked that harmony thing too. Like she used to say that the
right, yeah.
Like she dug that, and I always thought that was fascinating. I used to just like give her no ends of grief about that, because I would like, how can this song be your favorite song? Like there's some beautiful ballads on this record. How is it that you like that song? Because she never she never really, she wasn't a heavy music person, and she wasn't even a
Right.
proggy music person, you know. So I thought that was hilarious. But that song, I think, I mean, it's got kind of a Zeppelin-y thing, but the
Yeah, I'm
riff,
looking at my notes right now, just not to interrupt you, but
Yeah.
it seems like, because you know how a lot of times when we're using working titles, it'll remind us of the artist or whatever, and somehow I have Lifeson in here. So we were toying around with song titles like A Life Sun, S-U-N, Life Sun, Lifeson. Somehow I have written here, Pointy in Parts. That's a
That might
Dale
have been mine.
reference.
Yes.
And then Monkey with a Stick was another title
Monkey with
that's
a
written
Stick.
on.
That's a good one.
Uh,
See, some of these are going to get used, there, Jen. We got to be
Yeah.
careful on the air because
I almost called my
That's
drum solo
okay.
on one of the live albums Pointy in Parts.
you almost called
Anyways.
what, Dale?
I almost used that title later for a drum solo, but we just called it drum solo on the album. But Pointy in Parts or Monkey with a Stick both would have been good for a drum solo.
right.
Pointy in Parts is from
but-
How I Married an Axe Murderer. His head's
Right.
like Sputnik, spherical but quite pointy in parts.
Larry says Monkey with a Stick, and I have to agree, Monkey with a Stick. That's brilliant, and that would
That's
be
a good
great for a
title.
drum solo, like on the next DVD. You know, that'd be a good drum solo title.
Oh, and I have Swagger written down. I don't know what that's. Anyways, I think Lifeson was the. We used to call it the Lifeson tune when we were referencing it during the working
Yeah. The
title.
opening
So,
riff reminded us all of that. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
it was kind of like the early mid '90s rush when they were doing like the grunge kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
That whole down, like a lot
Right.
of that,
Yeah.
you know. So I think that's kind of was part of it, and honestly, part of it was probably the Rollins Band too. But and everybody be like, "What?" But
Yeah,
there's some truth to that. But yeah, it's a little bit of like kind of the heavier, darker Rush, and probably some Rollins Band, and then those harmonies. You know, when I write melodies, I usually come up with the thing underneath first and try and make that interesting, and then let that dictate what the melody is going to be. And that's why, you know, some of the melodies come out unusual because you specifically write something that maybe hooks on a weird beat or something. But that melody, I mean, I'm not sure if by design, but to me, it always sounded total Zeppelin to me.
The opening riff or that second part?
No, the kind of the Indian harmony thing that Jen's mom liked.
I remember that making a big impact on me where it seems so straightforward now, but it was a choice to just play 4/4 through the 7/8, melody there. And at the time that seemed a little more like I hadn't heard that as much, but it was slightly challenging for me to just, and that might be where monkey, like bashing like a monkey with a stick comes in, where I'm not playing in 7, I'm just playing in 4, and the guitars and Jen are with me. But anyway, I just remember thinking that was a little challenging to me at the time. And your ability to play this legato thing that wasn't grounded in 1 or 3, it was just kind of drifting over the top of 7 while nobody was playing 7 or giving you 1. I remember going, that really just made an impact on me, how you could think that way. And you've always been that way, but that's where I first realized that. And I thought it was ironic too, that you'll make melodies and I'm the one who will end up sometimes saying what time it's in. And yet you're more naturally able to just function in it, like maybe I intellectually understand it, but you're the guy who really grasps it. That one section of that one song really struck me that way.
Mm-hmm.
I also remember there's that descending part where Dale, the drums and the guitar try to do probably the most aggressive to that point of kind of almost the Steve Morris Morgenstein thing, where you're going and I'm trying to play that. Like, isn't that in this song?
Maybe I don't
like
remember.
We do that build up where it's like I think
right.
Yep. I remember playing that every night, where it was like that being a part that we didn't necessarily want to sound like total slop, but it was something you had to pay attention to. I just have like a deja vu of paying attention to don't be sloppy on that part with Dale playing that song. So
Steve asked, was there a
yes.
consistent guitar model that we used on the whole record? I'm looking at the notes on this one right now. Again, Axis. Let's see. Distorted guitar left is the XT with the vintage 412 and the Axis guitar. Right, Plexi Boutique 412. And then I have Creamy Business. Did you call one of your guitars Creamy Business, or did I just randomly write that Creamy Business?
That's got to be Devin.
Yeah.
Okay. What?
Devin would have heard a sound and he would have said, "That's some creamy business."
Yeah. See you later.
Right?
Okay, well, that's jotted down in any case. The lead is GNX4 main sound and your Petrucci guitar, the solo main sound with Petrucci.
Just to make it clear, almost all the lead tones. So to answer your question, Steve, the lead tones are almost always the Petrucci. There might be a few little fluctuations from that, but maybe not even. But on rhythm guitars, I would always experiment with anything just to mix it up, just to do anything different, whether it was even amp sounds. We haven't gotten to that album yet, but there was a time I mic'd like a little crappy practice amp and made this huge wall of sound song we'll talk about in weeks to come. And it was just kind of just to do it. That was one of the things. That's a Steve Morris thing. Steve Morris would say, just change anything up just to make it different. Just especially if you're doing rhythm guitars and you can combine different sounds of guitars. You could have a guitar sound on one side that sounds like really harsh and abrasive, and then one on the other side that maybe sounds different. And you layer all this stuff and create this big kind of heavy rhythm guitar section. So, and it's not necessarily about just finding like one perfect sound. It's just find any sound and just stick it on there and start adding stuff and see what happens. That's kind of always been my thing with that. Gino Sagittarius, Creamy Business. That was my stripper name.
Yeah. Greg says, was Jennifer direct or mic'd rig?
Back then, it was probably both. I think Kip used to like to run both just so he could do a little mixing of mic sound versus direct sound. That's my recollection.
On the first two records, you did that.
Yeah.
But
and beyond that, we started just going direct. Yeah.
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 This record was direct to Pro Tools.
We never ended up using any of the mic stuff. It always just sounded not good somehow. So, yeah. It was probably both on that. He might have used some of the mic rig on this record. I don't recall.
There's plenty of stuff added though. Like we would still run you through preamps and stuff after the fact, but you track direct.
Right.
So that whole thing, I forget like what's the one that Getty uses, like that we used that quite a bit for like your overdrive sound. The Sans amp. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like as a combination kind of thing. For some of the heavier tunes. In fact, this tune might even be one of those tunes because I know live you actually use a little bit of overdrive layered over your clean sound for the do.
I used to love playing this song live. It just was such a fun. That was just such a cool groove. And I love the melody over the song.
What's cool about this song live too? I'm trying to remember like there's some stuff that you did in this with octaves or something to create the effect that both guitar and bass are happening because they're not live.
Yeah, I think I was doing a bunch of chordal stuff on that do 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 all that stuff.
But even the rockin' part, I remember like there's something you're either using an octavider and a distortion on the high note maybe or something. I forget what we did. We'd have to go back and listen to the live album to figure out how to play it live again,
I know, that was so long. We haven't played this song live in a really long time.
That's one of the reasons.
Let's bring it back.
One of the reasons doing live albums is always important is because then you have a reference for the live version. Because sometimes our live versions, usually they're really close, but sometimes, we don't, there's a few things I try personally to steer clear of. One is having canned rhythm guitars. Like I don't like to do that, So like Jen is always trying to fatten her bass up for songs where I had a big, heavy, chunky rhythm guitar. A lot of times playing power chords and adding like a bunch of stuff that's peripheral stuff. The bass is still there, but in some kind of external effects, you know.
Adding some creamy business.
Now I'm the creamy business guy. That's my territory.
Oh, sorry. All right, next we got to move along.
Don't be intruding on my creamy business.
I'll say it's reassuring to see some of the musicians say they like hearing the details, because I love hearing that in interviews too, or webcasts or anything like that. But when you're doing it, you feel like nobody cares. So it's nice to hear people go, I love hearing all these details and the geek stuff.
Right.
Can we wrap this up?
Jen, always. Okay, well, this is if we don't have hits, but we have songs that we kind of jokingly say amongst ourselves is a hit. This is a hit.
What is it?
So that's Winter Still. Real quick, let me mention, Holly says, I'm not a musician and yet I love the geek talk. So good to hear.
That is cool. I already like your remark.
Tommy wants a TLB creamy business guy t-shirt. Yeah, that's how these things happen.
Somebody said that'd be a good mug too. So that might have to be my next print mug.
Brother. Creamy business guy.
So Winter Still is a song that still, I know you guys haven't done that in a while. I've been doing that at the solo shows until we didn't do shows anymore, but that song has stuck around. That is one of the all-time popular TLB tunes that, when you look at the analytics, as they say, when you go on the interwebs, you look at the analytics, Winter Still is one of the popular tunes. And what's interesting about it is, first of all, it was composed with a looper. It sounds like a looper. It's a song that basically just stacks up. It's almost like taking a looper song and just adding a band to it in a way. In fact, Jen and I, you can go find this on the internet, but Jen and I did a demo for Digitech Jam Mans when they had the Jam Man solo, that you could link the two together and sync them so that you could each do a loop and lock them up together and keep looping. We did a demo for the Jam Man solo together with that song once, where we both were playing our parts into it and letting it loop and then moving on to the next part. And,
wow, how did we manage that?
I don't know. You can go find the video and go, I don't remember doing that at all.
Yeah.
Do you remember doing that?
Nope.
Jen remembers nothing.
Except all the model
present moment, baby. So
ding. But I was also going to say it's that song, it doesn't have any guitar solos or anything at all.
Right.
Oh,
it's just a verse chorus song essentially.
Huh, somehow that seems to be very popular. No, just kidding.
Yeah, you take those guitar solos out, people like them.
I remember about this song being really like deliberate about what I was trying to do. Like, it was just same thing. We were keeping it the drum beat and the bass line in 4, even though it's a 5/4 overall song. And I remember thinking, well, I wanted the kick to stay with the melody, and I want to accent certain things. And it wasn't just a drum vibe. I literally wrote out everything that I wanted to hear and then just started learning what the drum part was. And it seemed like I was trying to encapsulate 5 things: a melody line and a bass line, and stay in 4 while it's in 5. And then I finally learned it. It took a week or two just to learn it. And it sounds like it's a really straightforward beat. It's just that I had certain things I was trying to do with it. And then when I heard it come out, I just thought it was the funniest thing. And I even wrote a blog about it. And some of my students, even who I didn't even know listened to the band, they said, it's funny reading your blog about how that was a challenging part to come up with, because it doesn't seem that hard.
Right.
It's really not a hard part. It was just hard to figure out all the things I wanted to incorporate.
Right.
The little tinkles and the splashes and the toms and stuff.
Well, and that brings up an interesting point because that's always the case, especially with Dale, because Dale thinks about things.
Yeah, I just make
Right.
easy things hard.
Yeah, but I will say the interesting point of that is for kids that learn cover songs and things like that, and you always say it's not that hard. Like
Right.
you know, even our songs, you get kids online that learn the songs. And they go, it's not a hard song. But we've always had the joke in our generation. You grow up and you go, you know, I can name you 10 guys that could play Stairway to Heaven better than Jimmy Page, but Jimmy Page, right?
Yeah.
Like he wrote the thing. So
Conceptualized it. Yeah.
did you write the thing? You know what I mean?
Yep.
So coming up with something out of nowhere or out of the thin air, you know, can be challenging, even if it's a simple part, to make it a cool part.
And sometimes
Thin air. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right. Oh my gosh. Right. Go ahead.
Yeah, Jen, go ahead.
So, Dale, does it seem to you like on this record, and this might be kind of a tricky question, there were a lot more songs with odd time signatures than the other records, maybe?
A lot of with odd time signatures, but I'm not sure if it seems like more than the other records.
More than okay.
I think I just have memories of how to handle the time signatures in a way that we've gotten so used to doing now. Does that make sense?
Right.
I really made
Turn the heater off really quick, so talk amongst yourselves.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, I feel like at that time it was a real decision whether you're going to make the rhythm parts stay in the odd time or whether sort of steamroll through it and have this counterpoint.
Right.
And there was so many things to think about. And now we sort of have like instincts as a whole band, and we just kind of know what we're doing. But but yeah, these just stuck with me, like how to handle those odd times. So I guess I don't really know the answer to your question, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah, it does seem like nowadays it's just more comes more naturally figuring out where the song is meant to be. And back then there was a lot of we had to kind of try everything first to land on a thing, maybe. Yeah.
And then I dragged you guys into that too. We're like, well, we got to try this. You got to try that. I would say that for me personally, over the years, I have changed my approach. I used to try to understand everything all the way before I would try to make a part. And now I just play what I think is going to be cool and then make sure that I understand it later. And there's one or two songs where I listen back and go, if I would have just been feeling more than thinking, I might have done that a little different, you know. Of course, there's always the song too that if I wasn't thinking, I wouldn't have understood it ever. So,
is everybody okay with that amount of echo? It's subtle, but there's still a bunch of echo going on.
Yeah, I'm hearing it, but
I haven't touched anything.
I haven't seen any comments.
Okay.
I haven't touched anything. What would happen
if you touch something?
There's an obvious joke based on this episode.
So the other working title, well, I don't know about working title, but title possibility for that one was Turn of the Wheel.
Oh, interesting.
And again, you were using the Plexi Petrucci, I wonder if the BOTQ 412, it must be the Electro Voice Boutique 412. XTC Hollow Body BLD.
Oh, Jen, it's just Boutique 412. That's a modeler.
Oh, okay.
That's a speaker simulator. So Boutique 412 is the model.
I see. BLD 212. All right. Well, anyways, this is probably so uninteresting. I do have your felt beater depth here, Dale.
Wow.
Deep 1. Normally set to normal.
Yeah, how much attack there is on the kick drum, whether it's felt or wood or plastic. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Deep 1 felt.
Tommy wants another T-shirt. I wrote a blog about it. A T-shirt that says I wrote a blog about it.
Oh, that's a good T-shirt.
I'm just looking through. He also says, yes, he can play Jennifer's bass parts, but he didn't think them up just a cheap imitation.
Yeah. Somebody said echo is slight. Anthony said echo is slight. No worries.
Tommy said, did you guys see the Zappa doc? We have not yet.
Yeah. Yep. So, moving along, I guess, huh?
Sorry, I'm just kind of checking this.
Nope, I'm not trying to rush you. I'm just trying to be... I talk too much myself, so I'm trying to be a force of moving things along.
Stephanie says, you're not making it easy to control my juvenile sense of humor tonight. I did see her. She said tinkles and splashes. That would be Dale's solo album.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Oh, wow.
Just
that's
like
better than that's better than Monkey with a Stick is tinkles and splashes.
No, listen, this would be if you did like an instructional video about picking out different symbols to fit different parts of music, you could call it tinkles and splashes.
Right.
He's writing it down.
That's what it would be, because
Yeah, no explanation necessary.
Right.
Splashes. You can't.
But Larry
can't
wants
any
to
further
know
than that. Oh, geez.
the correct beater depth for creamy business.
Yeah, I know. Yep.
Okay, sorry. All right, what's the next
Stephanie's
song?
going, well, why
Larson?
was I not juvenile?
All right. Next song is, let's see, Other Place, which, okay, make sure you guys got this. So that was our kind of first crack at let's play like a fusion song. And I'll play piano. That's one of two piano solos in the career of TLB so far. That one and Double Tap. And that
I like
was
that song.
That was kind of the beginning. There, to me, there's a middle ground between, and we'll get to a song that's more reminiscent of that. But like in our first early stuff, we had, the sort of jazzy tinged stuff was like Transcendental Dream, those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was kind of like a little jump where it became, we started trying to do stuff like Other Place, which became stuff like Above Below,
Right. Fuzzy.
Fuzzy, yeah, things like that, which were still, not as completely out there crazy fusion, although that clip was pretty fusiony. It was like a drum solo with like.
Have you listened to the song lately? The straight part you're thinking of it is an odd grouping of 3/4 and triplets within every 3. It's like a 9/4 polyrhythm. Is Trav's like, this isn't that weird.
Well, it was that was also one of the first songs where it was like make Dale just overplay the crap out of it. You know what I mean? Like Jen and I are kind of barely playing because it was like let's do something where Dale can just go like batshit crazy for 3 minutes, So there's a really simple groove. I'm basically on the rhythm parts. I'm basically just strumming chords on the one, and the rest of it is drums, and then there the melodic stuff over top. But we're totally trying to leave space so that Dale could go nuts.
Always reminds me of this argument I've had with Dave LaRue time and time and time again, where he's like, stop playing whole notes. I'm like, dude, drummer's playing right now. It's okay for me to play whole notes. So you can hear them.
Playing right now.
Yeah. That's the point that I'll make at clinics, which is like, this is a cool drum clinic song because I'm playing tons of stuff. But while you listen, pay attention to who's playing less so I can play more. And it's the bass player, just like both of you are just basically staying out of the way. And it's like a Simon Phillips type of a beat.
Now, there are bands where everybody can play a bunch of stuff over each other at the same time, really busy. One trio that's particularly close to our hearts.
Yeah, right.
And that is a thing, but that's just not the thing that I hear in my head personally.
Yeah.
So, and if that's, and that's incredible and it works in that context, but it's just not how I hear music. I want to hear, space for everything. And so if one guy's going nuts, then there should be room for that. It's like a puzzle,
Yeah.
And
explore the space.
If we didn't have like Fuzzy and
Above Below,
thank you. I would actually think this would still be a song that I might say maybe we should play.
Yeah.
Although there things do come across differently live too, then maybe it would seem a little odd that, you know, it is an imbalanced song, and Jen, you would be standing there playing whole notes a lot and stuff. So
That's okay. I don't mind that.
Well, the imbalanced, of course, the imbalanced song is going to focus around Dale.
yeah, right. Yeah, that's a good name for a song, Imbalance.
So
Right?
the working title on this one was 70s tune. And the 70s tune. And then Sam Hill was the other title option.
What in the Sam Hill is going on? That's what that is. What in the Sam Hill is going on?
Right.
I remember whenever I hear this song, I think it always strikes me that for a month in pre-production, I was learning this song and trying to get as tight as I could, and didn't quite understand what you were playing, Trav, in that da-da-da-da-da-da. And
that was super fast triplets.
Yeah, I thought it was just more of a like 2 dotted eighth notes, and it was pretty tight, and it was so fast you didn't notice it that bad. But now it'd be so obvious. There's tons of technology to just slow things down, and I think we're actually in the studio, and you were on the other side of the glass, and I asked you to play it slow, and realized what it was, and all of a sudden the song was way better. Like it came close to getting tracked. Me not quite understanding what that odd grouping was.
Yeah.
Anyway, just luckily we figured it out. But I always think of that.
I like at the end of this song too. To do it live was we actually had to implement some sample technology to make it sound full enough, but it's all bass melody on the way out.
Yeah.
But then what happened was then I harmonized. Yeah, so it was written to be a live thing as far as we thought it would be cool. Jen does the bass melody on the way out, and then I would come up and harmonize with her, and we could play that out on the song. Do 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 boo do 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 do. That bit, but there was no foundation if I start playing, so I had to figure out a way for me. I'm playing the chords under her. I'm doing the blah 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 blah, and then you have to figure out a way where how can I jump off of that. So we had to put that into the sampler. So
that I remember that too, where realizing the acoustic rhythm was just even triplets. It's like da, blah, 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 blah. And the whole song up to then had been, 8 notes to 6. It was a straight, 16 note song. And we had this whole conversation where I was like, it's not going to work. I can't play that while you do this triplety thing over the top. It's going to clash. And I've just never been so sure about anything. And then we just tracked it that way, and it seems to work out.
Yeah.
I still don't understand why it works. It shouldn't work.
It feels good. That's all that matters.
All right.
My brain hates it, but you're right. It feels good.
All right. Dear God.
Oh, dear God.
Right.
So that tune is kind of the first correctly done exploration into the big epic dregs influenced ballad type of song in my mind. And I remember we played the crap out of that song too. And without that song, you wouldn't have the drift or something like that. Like to me, the drift is kind of taking that concept and even further, and doing it even more successfully. But Dear God was a great song. I mean, for that kind of vibe, there's a good video on YouTube of Jen and I doing that at Hurtline Guitars. If you look up Travis Larson Band, Dear God, Hurtline Guitars, or if you look up Travis Larson, Jennifer Young, Dear God, or something like that, you'll find it. And I remember that song was really difficult because it was so slow. That's one of those songs where people talk about, they think the challenging songs are the ones with all the chops and the notes in them, but that song is so slow that to keep the feel and not feel like you rush and phrase things where they feel like rushed or uncomfortable, it's really, really challenging to like breathe and play that song right.
And it's not just hard to lay back. It's one thing if you can lay back and eventually get into a real slow song, but if it's super hard mentally and you have all this anxiety going on in your head, then to lay back, that's the thing that leads, in my mind, that leads toward the drift. Is it's super hard. You're anxious, trying to remember it all, and also trying to get this super laid back feel. I listened to that today. I liked it. It sounded good.
I'm looking at some comments here.
The other potential title for that one was Lament. And I remember thinking that title was just too sorrowful because that song has this, like, it's another one of those bittersweet kind of vibes. And I think that's how Travis tends to write ballads or sad songs. They always have this little tinge of hope in them somehow. So like, I every time we come up with a title for a ballad, if it's too like sad, I'm like, that doesn't work. It needs a little something. So I think I remember talking about Dear God. Remember Travis? I go, that's one of those things you can say when you're happy or sad, or there's it. You can say in all kinds of different situations, and I felt like that was more appropriate. There's a note I have to read this right here that says, hang on. Don't EQ out the cool factor on lead. Tubby is good. So
don't EQ out the cool factor on the lead.
The cool factor. that was one of my mixed notes.
Yeah, that would be Jen.
EQ out the cool factor.
Yeah, one of the things with Jen would be she would listen to the demos, and that's the way we would work for 6 months. And then you'd go in to mix it, and then all of a sudden you hear it differently because you have to fit everything. And this song has a lot of tracks on it, from what I remember, like a lot of rhythm tracks and overlaying, cascading stuff. And so that would be her telling Kip that directly, like, right?
Yeah, I always have my big list.
The cool factor.
I always have my big list of mixed notes, sometimes pages long of, like right here. At 46 through 323, bass track has an inadvertent high EQ. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Anyways.
Sam says, love this song so much. Great road song. Notes are so melodic. I love that song. Thanks, Sam. That's Jen mentioned that song, that song to me is a pretty dark song. And the thing you're talking about, Jen, there's always, I guess this reflects personality, the part that nobody knows about, the dark Travis Larson. But then when it starts to ramp up, there's like that kind of get your ass out of the chair and start to try and be triumphant, right? Like go to work.
Yeah.
And that's like kind of the build up in that song, because the intro to that song is really dark and weird. And then, it's kind of like 3 sections. There's like the all dark and weird. And then there's sort of like pretty ethereal, but still moody. And then there's okay, it's time to change this. We need to go to work and change our outlook here or whatever it is.
I was struck listening to that today by how the outro of this song breathes. Like with my own performance anyway, I notice that I'm sort of just spontaneous and trying stuff. And that goes to, you guys got to be really good engineers in Pro Tools, and just recording technology came up to where drummers could overdub. And I don't even know if I did overdub the outro. All I knew is I didn't feel panicked that I was almost done with a song and I better not fuck up. So there's just a little more freedom to like explore. And I totally noticed it in this song more than any, in all this listening back. That was one of the first ones where I was like, it's kind of just breathing,
right.
In that respect.
James says, wow, this is so James, by the way. Wow, 2007 is a long time ago. That's when I started to see these folks live. You realize we're like halfway through our career at that point. All right. Next tune.
Through the album.
Next tune. We got to go.
Yep. Yeah,
we don't really have to go anywhere. All I'm going to do is eat pumpkin pie. Sorrows.
Oh. Okay.
It's a trip to hear these songs. I haven't heard that in a million years.
I know.
Real quick, Ray Hayden says, meets you guys and fights at Denny's. Just to clarify for people who don't know, he's not talking about us fighting at Denny's. He's talking about a time that we went after a gig up in Seattle to a Denny's, and we watched two girls try and beat each other up in Denny's.
Yep, true story.
Fun stuff you see at Denny's past midnight.
Yep.
Okay, so The Sorrows is a tune that started with a Dale drum beat.
Yeah. So 2 words, metric modulation. I was trying to learn how to do this thing where drummers will kind of play a time signature within a time signature, and you get really out there. And then when I did some of that stuff, we decided it was maybe a little, it was kind of too far out there for how this band normally sounds. And then, so we kind of landed halfway. Like an example of a metric modulation would be like, if you go, if I go like this, and then I go, that's one rhythm. But then if I follow that, even though if I still follow the pulse, and you can just flow from one of those to the other, but it feels really weird. And so then that, I haven't tried to play that beat, but we sort of just kept it in the middle. Instead of being one and then the other, we kind of kept it half in both. And it's something like, I don't know if I can play it. That was amazingly close. I haven't tried to play that in 10 years. But so that beat sort of ended up being not quite a metric modulation, but kind of lived halfway into time signatures and then turned into that song. Trav was very patient in writing a song around a ridiculous beat.
Well, and what was funny about it too, is just like the inner discussions of it, was how I think it came out so much more simple and listenable than you anticipated it would.
Yeah, I didn't know whether to be disappointed or stoked. It's like, it just sounds like a normal guy playing a normal song.
Yeah, I mean, it just sounds like we've got kind of this little funk groove, and I'm playing these light melodies to it, but you were like, "Oh man, it's going to be crazy."
Yeah. You're like, okay, if you say so, I'll throw a melody on it. It'll be cool.
All right.
Anyway, I enjoyed it listening to it today.
That's a song that I much prefer to hear. It's actually a great song to listen to, but it's not that much fun to play because it's like, it's not that interesting of, as far as what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
Yeah. And I'd say honestly, like whatever any of us, it's more of like a trance song, for lack of a better description.
Yeah, interesting.
You know what I mean? So it's cool. It's like something to have on, but we haven't played it in the show in a long time just because it's not that fun of a live performance song. Right. But it's a cool tune for what it is.
Jan Anthony asked, where'd the title come from? This is the Jen
just
title.
Looking that up because I'm like, I remember it was an astronomy thing, the Sorrow Cycle. Remember that?
Yeah, it was a Babylonian reference.
What's that?
It was a Babylonian reference to the lunar cycle, right? And since Moon
so
came
I
up
just
with
looked it up really quick because I couldn't remember exactly. It says a slow, relentless rhythm known as the Sorrow Cycle is hidden away in the movements of the moon and the sun. It foretells eclipses. I remember I would get so into this and I would know every single little detail about what the Sorrow Cycle was. And there was all these different ones and I would be naming them. And I had all of this like thing in my head. Like we were calling it this because and this one has these different movements, and that perfectly matches the eclipses that are coming. And I would just come up with all this crazy shit, and now I'm like, I don't know. What was it called? Why did we call it that? Anyways,
good title.
I was so into that stuff.
I had forgotten
again,
that.
present moment. Now I'm like,
fascinating though.
Oh yeah,
it's Moon's beat, and it makes sense.
Yeah, she went topical with Moon and came up with a Babylonian reference.
The Babylonian sorrow cycle.
It's very TLB. It's much more complicated than it sounds.
Yeah, always.
Yeah,
and
right.
my notes on this one are just like, as far as the song structure itself, when you talk about how difficult it was, but it really sounds simple. It's just like all the verse. I mean, it's like, it's insane. Anyways.
Yeah, because people don't realize, like, if you go back and listen to that song, I noticed, I think, is it Sam that said it's a jam? But it's really, as much as it sounds like a jam, it's very far from a jam in that all those little
the first verse goes 10 times. First 2, no melody. Harmony on third time. No harmony on fourth time. Fifth time, sustain on 1 beat, no harmony. 6 times, sustain on 1 beat plus harmony. 7 times, sustain on 1, no harmony. 8th time, sustain on 1 plus harmony. 9th time, entire figure sustains, no harmony. 10th time, entire figure sustains, no harmony.
So there you go.
Remember all of that. That's just the first verse. The second verse is totally different, and it goes 8 times around.
Yep.
Anyways.
Yep.
So
that's the Sorrows.
That's the difference between the Japanese tribute band just playing a riff and actually playing it correctly with the right numbers and the right harmonies in the right places.
And probably the reason we never played this stuff live, because who would ever remember any of that stuff?
Well, we did until we were sick of it. What I think of it, when I think about this song, I think of the concerts in the park in San Jose. Like that's. Yeah. We used to do those so much, and I remember this song in that era. Like we played this a lot.
This is on Ready Change Live, I think.
Yeah, that's true. Thin Air.
Yeah,
big rock and roll song.
Okay, really quick. The other song title for Sorrows, I have jotted down Hot Pocket.
Caliente Pocket.
Sorry. Hot Pocket. Okay.
That's great.
Which leads us into Thin Air, which had a funny working title also.
Can I just say that
as you
Hot Pocket, not as good as the Sorrows.
Right.
Okay, yes. So Thin Air, the song that we were just listening to, because this song has such a big, soaring, happy melody. Go ahead and explain this one, Jen.
Well, I used to say it sounded to me like, okay, you know that big white dragon thing in the Never-Ending Story? The big dragony thing that flew?
Yes.
I never saw it, but I'll join you guys.
So I used to go, it sounds like, Falcor flying in the Never-Ending Story. And then it was sort of a classical. Remember we said how it was kind of classical? So we were calling it Falcor and the Chopin instead of Falcon and the Snowman. Right?
So many levels going on there.
Falcor and the Chopin instead of Falcon.
We were calling it Falcor and the Chopin. Yeah.
Because we're not nerds at all. Falcor.
And then finally I was like, okay, this is not going on the record. Falcor and the Chopin. Okay, so.
And then for
the other ones were line of sight, speed, time, and distance, and then we ended up with Thin Air. There you go.
And then for a month on the road, it'd be like, Thin Air, huh? What song? Falcor.
Right, Falcor. Right.
You get brainwashed by the working titles.
This song, I remember. This was always like the closing tune on the Digitrack, I think. So that's what I remember it as. This or maybe the closing tune before the encore, which would be ADD, maybe. I can't remember, but I think I remember stopping. I remember like going thank you, good night. Like that would be the end. Like I remember that. So maybe ADD was like in the middle of the set back then, or early on, like first or second song. But I remember playing this song in a lot of parking lots all over America in 2007 and 2008. The Digitrack.
Yeah, I remember now that you say that. Rick Beatty used to do that thing.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah, Rick Beatty would walk up in front, he'd walk up in front of the stage while we were
right.
And so would Tristan, our sound guy.
Right.
We'd be like, and those guys would mock us. Oh, and Tommy says Bytor and the Snow Dog. That was kind of the idea, I think, was it sounded kind of like something like that, right?
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. All right.
It was like, I think that's how it totally started. Like Jen and I, like Bytor and the Snow Dog. That's what it kind of, it was like the name sounded like that. And then it was like, well, we can't call it Snow Dog. So, but what about Falcon and the Snowman? Because that movie's Falcon and Snowman. And then it was like, Falcor and the Snowman.
And the Chopin, right.
And then you were like, we can't call it Snowman. Anyway, that was a fun song to play.
True. Yeah, that I think we were all sort of not 100% sure if it was going to come off live, and then it turned into being a great live song. You can never quite predict which ones are going to translate.
Yeah, I think we all thought that this is going to be my Travis politically correct terminology that I use whenever I talk about this stuff. People have heard me say this many times. I think we thought the melody was a little light in the loafers. Okay. And so we weren't sure how that was going to go over. And then it always went over because of the prog section in the middle.
Yeah.
With all the bass and guitar unison stuff.
And I think the sort of the part we were worried about being too epic and corny or something like that, just sheer volume helped it live,
Yeah.
You just hit him over the head with some volume and it had some power.
Yeah.
In the live
I remember those eighth notes being really hard to play at certain points in the set. If we do it too early in the set, I can't even sing it.
You saying that really, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No. I just remember that was tough sometimes. It was cold.
I think you can find this. You can find this on YouTube too. If you look up Travis Larson Band Thin Air from the Rate of Change Live, I think this is on YouTube. And so here's something I remember from that, which on the DVD, Dale playing the double kick for this.
Oh yeah. His head's bobbing.
His head's not moving, but his whole body is moving.
Yep.
I remember his body's shaking because he's like
and both hands and both feet are doing this thing, and the whole body's moving underneath my head.
His head's staying straight. I remember that shot.
There's a thing about this band, like when you think of double kick drum, you think of fast guys playing metal, but playing real medium tempo like that is hard because you can hear all the little mistakes, but also you just end up making bigger movements because you have to keep a consistent motion anyway. So you play from your whole hip, and it's a way more muscular thing than if I was trying to play real fast. And anyway, I remember that when we first started playing in the Midwest, speaking of the Digitrack, and just cramping up, like hip cramps to me are just so brutal because those muscles are strong and they just hurt so bad. And there's no way to move your limb. You're playing both limbs and both hands, and I would just sit there and go through these cramps night after night in that humidity because I was so dehydrated. I just remember that. And then I remember biting my cheek to distract myself from that pain, but then I got a mouthful of blood. So after that, this song always reminded me of the taste of blood. Super more than you wanted to know, but
that could have been the working title. The Taste of Blood.
It was nothing about the song. It was playing the song outdoors in the Midwest. That's what it was.
It's either about a big, fluffy, white, shaggy, flying dog, or it's about the taste of blood.
I totally remember that.
It was a dragon.
You're right.
It was a dragon.
You saying playing those notes was hard. Made me think of that. Okay.
Ray Hayden says he's officiating Rick Beatty's wedding on December 12th.
Yay.
Holy cat.
Wow.
Congratulations.
Neato.
Yeah, to both of you.
So there's that.
All right. So
All right, here we go.
Yeah, we got to go.
We
What's
don't
next?
have to go anywhere.
this
This is for Devin.
Yeah.
So that I got to read a text to you guys real quick leading into this. So my birthday's on Monday, as we talked about earlier, and I got a text from Devin earlier, the boy, and he says, "Here, hang on, I got to find it." He said that he was downloading stuff to his iPod, and on Monday he was going to listen to Charming Snakes and Power Windows all day in my honor.
Nice.
Nice.
So
Wow.
Devin is kind of responsible for the title of that song, right?
Yep.
The song is called Sums, and on that whole era of TLB, from like Burn Season to through Rate of Change Live, the opening music, and James Tejada will remember this, I'm sure. The walk-in music at every TLB show was the Andy Summers album, Charming Snakes. So this is back when Devin's like the ultra hip kid who, you shortened everything up back then. And so
First syllable of the last name with an S.
Yeah, so instead of saying Andy Summers, he would just call him Sums. He'd be like, "Hey, put some of that Sums on the CD player, Trav. Hey, let's hear some of that Sums, huh?" And so this song is very influenced, by that kind of vibe of like that Andy Summers solo record, kind of fusion-y thing. And this goes back to, like I said too, of the stuff that I've always been like Transcendental Dream from the first record, same kind of vibe. And this honestly goes back to like early 80s, some of the music I was listening to back then. And, I don't want to say jazz. It wasn't really jazz, but like guys that were like kind of like sort of fusion-y, but like not hardcore jazz fusion, and it was like you could listen to it. And so that's kind of stuff. Even like Mike Post, who did all the TV themes, for like Hill Street Blues and I don't know, there's a bunch of them, but that kind of vibe, and it's kind of what the Andy Summers album sounds like. So that's the title. It's called Sums because it sounds very influenced by like an Andy Summers solo record.
That sounded great when I listened to it today. It held up completely, but at the same time, I wouldn't think it would have a place in the set, like the live set.
Right. Well, depends on what the rest of the set is. Jen?
Yeah. I know that Dale used a wood beater head and deep one on the eye.
Right on.
wood beater head would also be a good Dale Moon shirt.
All right.
Because we were trying to get more of a click on the kick, right?
Yep.
Pretty much.
Yep.
Like not like a Metallica click, but a little more of a snap.
Yeah. Yep. There's felt, there's wood, and there's plastic.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. Oh, there's a bass solo in that song too, a really long one. Like Jen plays the whole melody through a whole verse of that song, from what I remember.
Huh.
And you were using, again, it was the piezo thing that sounded kind of fretless.
Right.
But you played that you played the guitar thing, right? Like we each took a pass in that song, which is one of the songs that song has not maintained with a lot of any of this, because that would be a perfect song for me to do it like solo shows if it's kind of a mellower show, but it's half of that song is bass melody, so I don't ever play that without Jen, which is why it doesn't get played.
I see.
I also remember
Oh,
I also remember, hang on, that quick breakdown that we just heard, where it breaks down and holds that piano chord. I remember we changed that after the fact, and we actually pitch shift that piano chord. So if you really listen to it, you can barely hear a little bit of warble. Like, we decided that it should be lower than it was when we originally demoed the song.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there's some chord in there that sounds a little bit like kind of wobbly, and it's because it was a pitch shifted piano chord because the setup was all scrapped at that point. There wasn't a way to go back and match the tone and everything.
Right.
So anyway,
I hate when that happens.
hey, we're doing fine. Last time we went like 45 minutes more than this, and we've only got a couple more songs. We're actually on perfect track.
Got 5 more songs. a lot of songs on this album.
Man.
I'm just thinking, people have to go to bed, Travis.
It's Saturday night on Thanksgiving weekend. They're bored to death. We're all stuck with our in-laws, if anybody. Yeah. Hell's Half Acre. So
wow,
that song's got some crazy bass in it.
That's some sweet slap in there.
Yeah, I'll ask you about the title in a second, Jen. But I was gonna say my biggest memory of this song at a live show, my only real memory of this song at a live show is playing the last Monterey Rock Fest, and before they stopped doing it, and having no monitors. And I had those EV 412 cabs on a gigantic stage, like on the Monterey Rock Fest stage. And I just turned my rig up all the way and had no monitors and had earplugs in. And I remember, for some reason, this song really sticks out in my head with that, because I just remember it being just like so incredibly overwhelmingly loud and rocking, but like overwhelmingly loud, like uncomfortably loud for the guy actually making the noise. You know what I mean?
Right.
It was like Lemmy volumes, because there was the PA, there was no sound check, and I didn't have any monitors, so I just went out there with everything just up so I could make sure that I could hear. And that's like my one big memory of playing that song, and the last time I remember playing that song. But and I remember that bass solo just being batshit crazy every night.
Right.
But, so tell us about the title.
Says, do you remember me requesting this at the Fault Line Clinic? Yes. Every time we'd play clinics at Fault Line, John would be like, Hell's Half Acre.
That's right.
Like, I can do it.
It's a popular song.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a guy. I was gonna say, when we were at the Texas Rock Fest, same thing. Guy there was like, "Play Hell's Half Acre. I've been waiting for this," and it was long out of the set at that point. And
I thought this was legit funny. Ted Banks, we were talking about going to bed, and he said, "I'll sleep when I'm dead," and then Gino said, "I'll sleep when Ted's dead." Anyway, sorry. Just some.
And then Zed's dead, baby. Zed's dead,
baby.
Sorry, totally. That I didn't want to let it get away.
Tell us about the title, Jen.
I don't have any real notes on that. I do remember somehow Hell's Half Acre and the other place were connected. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
I don't remember how or why.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, the other place, the title of the other place is taken from the Twilight Zone.
Right.
So the Twilight Zone that everyone remembers, where that guy, like that street hoodlum guy, gets shot and then he meets that guy who's like his butler, and he gives him everything, and he takes him to the casinos, and he gives him all this money, and there's pretty girls all around and everything, and the guy thinks he's in heaven because he has everything he wants, but because he doesn't have to actually get it, he has it, then there's no fire under him, and he starts feeling like crap. So at the end of the show, he goes, I don't think I belong here. See, I think I belong in the other place. And the guy goes, what makes you think this is heaven, Mr. Valentine? This is the other place. You know, and then, so that's where the title Other Place comes from. So Hell's Half Acre, there was like a theme, like a hell theme, right?
Yeah. Well, there was some sort of melodic something about those two, or maybe we'd taken bits from this and that, and I don't remember now, but they were related somehow, and so we made the titles related in a way. Based on.
I think of Hell's Half Acre, I think of that's a title your dad kind of coined, right? Or at least we stole it from something that he would say.
Yeah, right? Well, that's sort of my dad would say all of those types of things, like Hell's Half Acre.
Well, because the ranch back in the ranch days, you know, he'd be like, you know, it'd be way out there somewhere in Hell's Half Acre or something like that. So I remember. I mean, Jen came up with that title based on something your dad said, I thought, or at least I know you came up with the title.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, I think somehow it was related to the other place also, but I can't remember which one came first, and I can't remember why. It was some sort of melodic thing or parts thing where they're taking a little bit from each other somehow. So the title, I was like, what's another, you know, hell thing, you know, that kind of thing.
Because we gotta write hell songs.
We're gonna write hell songs.
Such a metal band. So anyway. Yeah, I don't really have a whole lot of notes on that one. That one was a tough one to play live. I do recall that. Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard not to play sloppy because those lines are so fast. Yeah. It's right. Oh, that's what it is, Jen.
Yeah, you just sang something from Other Place.
Yeah, there you go.
It's the intro is kind of the same lick in a different spot and not harmonized. Right.
How's the Other Place go?
It goes diddle diddle da 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 da. Right, but then this one is a different key. You know, it's a different part, but it's got that fluttery kind of.
That's probably what it was. I was like, dude, you can't play the same thing in two songs. And you were like, yes, we can. Just call them something different.
Yeah. Right. Well, it's totally different, but it's the same technique. You know, right. It's like this lick that I kind of like. I stole part of the lick for the other song. You know,
right.
In a completely different context, but yeah, that's why that makes sense.
There you go.
Totally.
Wow.
I just remember those being connected and having two hell songs.
Yeah. The good and the bad.
Ah.
So that's one of the duets that here's what I'll say about that duet. That's very much a showpiece for Jen's bass playing. And that's another very Steve Morris, Dave LaRue influenced thing. I wish the engineering was a little bit different on that song because it's a little woofy. I wish the bass kind of had a little more of that kind of trumpety kind of thing that it has on some of the other, you know.
Well, I have here on my mix note, pull out some low mids on bass. Maybe that one didn't get addressed somehow.
Maybe we need to pull out more low mids, but yes, I think it's funny because I have actually kept up with that song. I did that. I had a Fishman clinic tour, 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, something like that. Just like right before the last Aristocrats tour. So I think last year. And they wanted me to do some stuff for the Tonewood amps, the acoustic amps. And so I did Old Gus, which I've been doing on the live streams every once in a while. And I did that one. And I had to actually, it's Old Gus is not so hard to play to the track of Jen playing, because you're playing every single note of the whole song. Like we're both playing constantly the whole time. But because this song is all melody, you're playing the lead and I'm basically strumming the rhythm for you. To play this song to a track turned out to be impossible, because I couldn't keep time with the bass melody, right? Like as hard as I could try and find it, I couldn't keep it. So I actually had to create a shaker that was sunken in the mix for the live performance that's not actually on the record. That was the only way I was able to pull it off, so I can't really do this tune at all without a real person, yeah. It doesn't work. But I this is also on the interwebs. If you want to go out and look, this is on the Hurtline, those videos from when we did that Hurtline performance that time. So you can find out if you look up Travis Larson, Jennifer Young, Good and the Bad.
Now, who knows what you'll find there? Get it?
Yeah.
Let's see. Other song titles. Well, I remember. So some other possibles were Measure of Faith, Rain, Plain as Day. But I remember how we just felt it had such kind of a Western, like you're riding a horse vibe. And every time I was just like, man, it just feels like you're out on the plain riding a horse, like, and the leather and the dust and I would always give poor Travis, these big descriptions of like this thing in my head. I'm like, it feels like this and it sounds like that. And anyways, Good and the Bad. And Travis would always joke, well, which one's, am I the good one or the bad one? Who's the ugly one? That whole thing.
By the way, I would be the ugly one since I'm non-present in that song.
I think that's what we came up with. Not like specifically, but as a joke.
The Good, Bad, and the Ugly. I remember that. Good, Bad, and the Ugly. How about just Good and Bad? Because you can't rip the title. Plus, then it's a joke that Moon's ugly.
Then it's a joke that they're ugly. Yeah, I think that's
and the three of us know the other answer, right? Like we know who everybody is.
Right.
But
part of the logic.
But that's a cool song. I remember that being.
It is a cool song.
That's a hard one.
It is a tough one, yeah.
A hard one for you, too.
Yeah, I don't know if between that and Old Gus, I'm not sure which one is more difficult. I guess they're difficult in different ways, but we should bring them both back.
Yeah, well, we'll do on the next tour. We were going to do some more duets. I forgot to tell you this afternoon. I won't repeat it now, but I had a really good idea. You were talking about, Jen and I were talking today, and she was saying about learning just some songs for fun right now, to just kind of get her fingers in shape, like just, jam into like Zeppelin covers and stuff or whatever. And I've got a tune the other night. I was actually couch potatoing guitar, and there's a tune that I actually sat down like 8 months ago and went online and learned how to play. And now I know how to play it, and I kind of relearned it the other night. But this is what we're going to end our shows with on the next tour. Wow, it's just a short. It's like a 60-second bit.
Got it.
So
I've been trying to stay in shape by playing to "Dreaming" by Blondie, which is fast and long and tons of toms. Guy's an animal. Anyway, go ahead.
Glenn says TLB's greatest hits tour. Well, we did that in 2018. We need more hits now.
Right.
And by hits, we mean songs that only you guys know.
Right. Yeah. All right. What's next?
Yeah. Here, let's see. Sorry.
Plain Ugly. Oh, sorry.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hang on. All right. Here we go. Plain Ugly. Okay, well, I will say unabashedly that that song is for any Steve Vai fans. That's actually a very Steve Vai influenced song, and we don't have many of those. Like that might be the only one where I would say that's kind of a Steve Vai influenced vibe.
That's the working title, Vi Tune.
Yeah, and the reason that we don't play it live is because it's a guitar song. There's a rhythm guitar part that's so integral to it that you can't really do it on bass because it's like a funky guitar thing, and then the bass is very sparse with that to create this kind of sparse funky thing, and it's all about the lead guitar. I'll say also the chorus of that song, the first time on a record that we put a B3 on, and I remember doing that, and I just heard it and I was like, wow, it still sounds cool. Like I remember literally just like doing that and then just holding the chords, like just trying to be the full on B3 guy, and but that song can't really get played live as a band without another guitar player because it just doesn't seem right. I mean, you could, but that's kind of the line we draw as far as what's cheesy and what's not cheesy. And if you had this completely funked out, interesting guitar part that was recorded, it might kind of seem kind of cheesy on stage, but nobody's playing it,
I remember I think this is the only song really in all of our albums where there was a section toward the end where I just had this idea of what I should hear, and I sort of let go of the idea that I could execute it. You know what I mean? Like, and maybe something about doing a Vice song and the way he'll produce things sometimes made me just not feel like that was important. And I just did like 3 passes of like cymbals and toms and snare. And technically what ended up going down could be played by somebody, but I wasn't going to bother to learn it and I didn't care. And it was just, it's this big cacophony. It reminds me very much from that perspective, reminds me of that song Witch Hunt by Rush, where Neil Peart said, well, we just went for some overdubs and we're trying to capture this thing. And it never occurred to me that one person could play it. And then he'd hear cover bands doing it. He's like, I guess I should learn to do that myself.
Right.
But if we ever played that song out, I would have to learn that. And I think it's playable. I just couldn't be bothered learning.
There's so few. Yeah. To your point, there's a middle section of this song that people didn't hear just now. That's very, very different. That's the part you're talking about.
Yes. Right.
Kind of like a Rush influenced thing.
Yep.
But if I remember correctly, it's kind of almost a Tom Sawyer on steroids.
I remember you calling, and after I had the demo, and you said, "Hey, just wondering if you had any thoughts on that song." And I go, "Yeah, it's cool." And I go, is there anything you thought? Did you listen to the end part? And I was like, "Yeah, it sounds quite a bit like Tom Sawyer. If you meant that, then I think it's cool. If you didn't, then I think you should re-listen." I mean, it doesn't really sound like Tom Sawyer at all. It's just like, it's definitely referencing the.
Yeah, it's basically an octave thing. It does this like boom boom bam boom boom bam boom 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 bam bam boom bam boom. It like bounces back and forth in this kind of proggy way between octaves.
Nobody would think you're ripping it off, but at the same time, if it's intentional, it's cool.
But I remember really liking that song. As far as it's a good song to listen to, but it just hasn't really been playable. I see a lot of suggestions out there. People, Ted says play it live with Larry Mitchell. That could be a possibility on a tour.
James said get Werner to play,
or something like that. But if we did a tour with somebody, maybe like Larry or Dave would be a good guy too.
Oh, of course. Tommy Quirk says bring Guthrie out to play that song. There you go.
Yeah, well, yeah, there wouldn't be any. There wouldn't be any notes left for the rest of us. There'd be too much hair and notes on stage between the 2 blonde guys in that one corner. But yeah, I mean, we could do something like that maybe someday. We'd have to learn it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
All right.
Yeah.
Anything about that song, Jen? As far as
Not particularly.
been so
I
long,
remember
right?
that was when this I like in on every album there's songs that are reminiscent of another song on an album. It's just you always get this one oddball one and no one knows where it fits or what to do with it. And on I think it was Annika, the K9 360 is a very similar song. It's a sort of Vi-esque and just odd and you don't know what the hell to call it. And I remember at some point I think it was Travis who just had said, man, that's or maybe one of us, that song's just plain ugly. And I was like, that's it. So I don't have any other, it was the Vi tune. That was it until somebody said the magic phrase. I'm like, that's the title, plain ugly. So, yeah. I don't know. That was one of those oddball ones.
I remember there's every album has one song too that I remember. You know how you kill yourself to try to mix a song correctly, and every once in a while one will sort of just sound right and you're like, I don't know what we did, but that one sounds right. I remember, I don't know if I would agree now listening back or not, but at the time I remember this is a weird song, but the mix sounds really good. I totally remember that.
It always tends to be those weird songs. I think the K9 360 was the same way. The mix sounds like amazing and you're like, that's like the weirdest, most oddball song, but it sounds so good. And I think this one was the same way. That's why I don't have any notes on it. It's like, yep, I don't know. Sounds good. It like mixed itself.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say in this case, specifically, it's one of those, there's space and that always makes a difference. It's kind of like,
that's true.
Yeah. We'll get to some stuff on some later records, but there's some songs down the road too, that they're total production songs, and it's like songs that we haven't really played a lot, but there's so much space because it wasn't really about like a performance. It was about a vibe. Yeah. Wasn't really about chops, I should say. It was about a vibe, and this is one of those songs. It's like there's 3 distinct parts in it. And that's one of the reasons that it doesn't work live, because it's like bass, guitar, drums, and the melodic sense, it's like bass, guitar, the rhythm guitar and the bass are totally bouncing off of each other. That's kind of like the whole thing of this groove. And that's why it doesn't work with just bass or without guitar, so. I mean, you could do something, but it just wouldn't be as cool. It wouldn't have the same effect. It would just sound like we were doing a groove song, So,
yep.
All right, last tune, everybody.
Which one is it?
It is "Room to Breathe."
Oh boy.
I'm so glad it played that part.
Yeah. I was going to say, I knew that he was going to say this, but this is one of Gino's favorite tunes of the whole catalog.
Me too.
It's a groove melodic tune. Basically, I'm just kind of doing, this is one of those Jeff Beck songs for me, where it's like create a groove. And then Jen and I do a lot of stuff together in this song. Like as much as she's grooving, there's a lot of bass and guitar melodic stuff. You just heard that, that beginning of that clip was the unison bass guitar melody. But that's just a feel tune. I mean, it's not complicated to play once you learn it. And it's just, I remember that being last time I remember playing that was at Pleasanton Brewery.
Are you serious?
Yeah, like that's what's in my head. I remember we used to do that, in those days. I remember playing it there.
Wow,
like that's what it makes me think of.
Michael Schwartz says the first TLB song he heard, and he immediately bought the album.
Oh wow, yeah, I remember that song, and this is probably where Michael heard it, I guess. But Pandora, I think Pandora used to play that song a lot. A lot of stuff on Rage Change got played on Pandora Radio, which would get linked off of like Steve Morris Radio and stuff on Pandora. And Chuck says sex farm.
Perfect.
It's sort of it's a sort of A minor, very beautiful ballad. It's called "Lick My Love Pump." But anyway, yeah, I mean that's a beautiful song. The reason we don't play that a lot is because we played it out so many times, and we have other songs that are also in that vein. And so, Dale mentions this a lot when people ask us, "Well, why don't you play this song or that song?" Well, we have so many tunes now, so many albums that stylistically you can only do kind of so many of one category. You don't want the whole hour of a set to be like the slow R&B groove songs. So we've had some others that we've been doing like on every record we've kind of done something along those lines. Like the most recent one was Jen, help me out.
Mercy Springs.
Mercy Springs, yes, that's like the more recent version of kind of one of those touchy-feely R&B-ish type songs. So
it's a good representative of that.
Yeah.
I remember we talked a little earlier about when you go through the demo process, you really get used to the demos, and there's beautiful things about the demos that like you get used to them, even though they can't really work in the final mix. You don't know how the final mix is going to go, and you fall in love with the demo, and then it changes the mix time. And I remember falling in love with this song during the demo process and just bracing myself for it not to have the same thing, and just really grappling with that. And it's one of those that I fell in love with in the demo process, and it came out on the other end, and I still love it. Like in approximately the same way. You know what I mean? I freaking love the song too.
What I love about these kinds of tunes, because they're less physically challenging, is that they end up being more honest performances. Like, for instance, this one, and then the one that Jen just said, I have the COVID brain.
Mercy Springs.
Mercy Springs. Mercy Springs is the one tune in our whole career where the entire lead passage on the way out was the first time I ever played it on the demo, and I kept it for the record. And that's
There's also Pretty Reason. Is that the one you're thinking of more? No,
that was fairly worked on. But
okay, sorry.
Yeah, but Mercy Springs, that bit at the end with where I start soloing,
right?
Like just does all exactly. I cleaned a few things up, as far as some timing things, but that was what happened, and that was to the groove on a demo that eventually got built up underneath with all the interesting rhythm section stuff. But originally it was just a beat and a drum, and a key.
I was thinking of another song, but it's on a later album. Would You Believe is that way?
Yeah.
Would You Believe? Yep.
Anyway, sorry.
But those kind of songs are always, they sound more honest because they are more honest as far as songs that really have like because you don't have to overthink them.
Right.
You can play those songs in a studio when you're coming up with the ideas and listen back and go, that was the performance right there. I don't have to figure it out and redo it 6 times to make it right. That was it. Because it's not so challenging that you're flubbing through it to try and figure out. You're just pouring your heart out and playing something.
Yeah.
And so that's a real tune, But hey, Chris Phillips.
Yeah, enough with the free bird, Chris Phillips. My word. Jeez. Where were you at Dad's birthday party anyways? Anyways.
Chris Phillips. I had fun hanging out with your wife though, Chris.
Yeah. Anyways, for this particular tune, yes, the working title was the Jeff Beck ballad, and then some of the other potential titles were Sweet, Soul Speak, and Breathtaking. I think Room to Breathe. I think that, again, it was another phrase. Someone said, it was like, hey, I think we should hold that one note. It's going to give it a little room to breathe right there. And it was like, oh. So that's how those things always happen, Yeah. But you have a thread, there was obviously this sweet, soul, breathy vibe going with to and all of these alternate titles were never alternate titles. They're just like these concepts. And then someone will say something, and then that's when you're like, oh, that's the combination of words that it was supposed to be. So I think that's what happened on that one. It was like Room to Breathe. That's the one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyways,
that was,
I'm always that's always me going, what'd you just say?
That's a song that's such a slow song that to do a concert set and do that song and then something like Dear God and then anything off of any other records that's slow, and we always play Georgia. Eventually you got to keep those to a minimum, unfortunately, because it's fun to play those tunes, and it's actually, sometimes it's really touching to play those tunes, but you can only do so many in a set or else people start to go to sleep.
I remember tracking this song, and the drum part, it's kind of layered. It's not the most demanding part, but I tracked it myself and listened back, and I wanted to be able to sort of loop certain sections and have a real hypnotic thing going. But what I noticed was the tiniest imperfection in a loop just comes back like water torture, So, and I remember talking to you guys where I was like, it might sound like it's good, but I've listened to this and I'll know when it's right, I swear. And you guys are looking at me like I'm crazy, and I'm like playing the same groove for like 20 minutes, and you're like, you think you got it? And I'm like, it's not there yet. And then,
hey Jen, 20 minutes.
Yeah, right. Let's say an hour 45 or something. So like 2 hours of me busting this groove forever. And then they're just talking, and I finally stop. I'm looking, and one of you's not in there. The other one's reading. I'm like, I got it. Press play. Anyway, I thought that was hilarious how I'm sure it all sounded exactly the same for like the whole time, but I had convinced myself I needed to get it just perfect.
Right. Well,
I'm looking at the mix notes, and it's like sizzle cymbal on hit right before unison section. Like that might have been something you would suggest. Bass EQ, warm drums, techno trash. That might have been the patch you were using. Techno trash.
Yeah.
The sizzle cymbal is the cymbal that has the rivets drilled into it, right?
Oh, so we had missed one, yeah.
And it's a really thin cymbal, and it has a cool sound. And the drums were way too loud in the demo, but that being way too loud was awesome. And then it was this sort of crisis at tracking time. We wanted that. How do we get it? And I think we probably just, because if the drums were the right mix, that wasn't going to be loud enough. I think we just sampled that cymbal or overdubbed that cymbal and put it there, made it louder. I totally remember that.
All right, kids. Any other thoughts on Rate of Change besides the entire DVD that we did?
Well, regarding real quick, I always will be appreciative to Dale, and he's so considerate with helping me figure these types of things out with the album art. I was like, okay, somehow, actually, I think Dale came up with the album title in some way. Another one of those things where he must have said something, Rate of Change. And I was like, what was that you just said? And so I have here all of the papers, and not that you can see them, but he dug out his physics books and helped me figure out all of the formulas and such for the album artwork and all of the rates of change images and concepts in the album art. Yeah. One of them being the deltas and all the formulas and the melting ice cube and the coin flipping.
That's a good bookend, because earlier on you mentioned that just the trippy space you were in during this album and going through a lot. And I felt the same way. There was a lot of tension going on in this album, not necessarily bad or good, but just a lot of tension with all three of us in the world. And I don't know if to say with each other is redundant during an album process, but anyway, Rate of Change. And I always had connected the calculus concept of you're always trying to figure out how fast something is changing, not how fast something's going, but how fast it's changing. And then you can go and how fast that change is occurring. And so I always thought that was a super cool phrase. And then I think I explained the other meanings that I thought of to you, and you latched onto it.
The actual photo of the album cover is a rusty thermometer that my brother took a picture of in his yard.
Yeah.
And then all the design and everything else around that was Jen. And the actual, I remember the melting ice cubes. Like I remember her melting ice cubes and lighting them and taking pictures of them. And it's like, what are you doing? It's like I'm gonna making, for the cover art, I'm gonna do a thing. I got an idea. Just let me do my idea.
Yeah.
Right.
Got like a piece of ice on a counter with like an expensive camera, and then like behind it a light, and just waiting for the ice to melt just right. That's like real.
I mean,
art.
Not that any of this is so brilliant or amazing or anything, but at the time when you don't know what you're doing and fiddling around, and it is what it is, and I think that's the cool thing. That's the cool thing about albums is it's a snapshot of the time in your life and your skills at the time and your awareness of everything. And so, that was 15 years ago, right? 16.
Almost.
Yeah.
Well,
2006. Sorry, I was thinking 2004.
14.
Yeah.
So 14.
Anyway,
that's it's the age of a teenager that's starting to give you trouble.
Right.
Doesn't quite have their license yet, but they're starting to talk back,
Anyways.
But yeah, I mean, like that's I say that I talk about the Ice Cube thing, because that's how funny that stuff is. And then it becomes a poster or something. It's like Jen literally in a kitchen taking pictures of ice cubes, and then, and that was my first, that was, my favorite all us production at that point, because we talked about Burn Season was Hugh Syme, who did all the Rush album covers, so this was like kind of all in-house 100%. And I remember I see pictures of videos from the DVD where you see the drum head, that has the rate of change stuff on it. I mean, all that is like, iconic isn't the right word, but in my life personally, it's kind of iconic. Like I see it and I go, oh yeah, like that's a whole period of time there based around those images,
Yeah.
And so it's just funny how that stuff happens, and it's just, us messing around with like construction paper and tape.
Ice cubes in the kitchen.
Yeah.
I thought that album art on that album was really deep, Jen. I know you were sort of like, I know it doesn't seem like that big a deal, but there was a couple things. I just planted the phrase, and then you came up with the fact that, change is represented by the Greek letter delta. And then I don't want to spoil anything, but there's like an abstract photo in there. I didn't even know what it was. It's like the Ganges River Delta, right?
Oh yeah.
Like that's sort of a play on Delta that's like too removed, but it was the coolest picture. And then you start tripping out on how that is change, right? Like ports and river basins are cultural change. I remember tripping out on how deep the art on this album went.
Right. Yeah, that's why even with the title, sometimes it would go to all these places, and then like 15 years later, I'm like, I don't remember. What was all that about? There were lots of weird,
And then when we do, just we won't do a whole nother show on this, but the live DVD and live album is like a whole nother production that takes a whole nother year.
Yep.
You know what I mean? People think it was one show. It's like, well, one show and you're done, right? Well, it's no, because we had to edit video and mix a double live album out of that performance, and then integrating all the artwork you did from Rate of Change into the Rate of Change live stuff and all that. Like all that stuff was so much work, and creating, a whole nother set of that's 4 discs, right? But
Okay, you're making me tired just talking about it. Okay, everyone's wishing you happy birthday and saying good night. So happy birthday, Travis.
Thank you, everybody. Monday we're gonna just the 3 of us are gonna go hang out and eat cake, right?
Yeah. Calculated risk.
Free Sylvester burger.
I don't know if I'll do that this year.
Oh.
Because you have to sit there in one of those hats, and there's no way I'm going into Sylvester and wearing one of those hats.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
They got these hats that are made of like felt and stuff, and they pull down over your head. There's no way I'm putting one of those on. They're all kind of nasty and greasy.
like a petri dish.
300 people have put them on, you know. So yeah, I think I'll make my own burger.
What if they do
Right.
takeout? Would you do it then?
Yeah, but they won't do free takeout for your birthday, I'm sure. Because then you
Okay.
can't wear the hat and you don't have to take a picture. They want you to wear the hat and take a picture. That's the whole thing.
Okay.
I'll
Well,
call
maybe they have, we'll see.
I'll call them and say, hey, can I get a free burger even if I don't want to come in?
Yeah, I didn't think they were gonna do a free takeout. Just thought maybe.
Yeah, appreciate. They just deliver me a burger. It's my birthday.
Yeah, I swear.
So before we go, mention one more time that we have the new swag. I'm gonna that's in the description of this video, and I'm right now in the chat. I'm posting that. I'm not sure if the link works in the chat though. So if the link doesn't work, go check out. But you can buy any style of shirt or sweatshirt or anything now. Colors of
So
the
cool.
Moore's Circle TLB logo, which I'm very excited about. And also,
I think it's only available in black. Just mentioning.
T-shirts, you can pick different colors. I'm pretty sure. You think I'm wrong? Am I wrong?
I chose which colors could be picked.
Oh, I'm wrong. The designer says black, which here's the thing about
No colors for you.
I said all the colors, and that's exactly what black is. It's all
That's
the
exactly
colors.
what black is, right?
Wow.
Okay.
You're right. There you
So-
go. Perfect.
And also, so check that out. Also, if you didn't catch the Little Wing Hendrix tribute that we posted yesterday, go check that out. That's in the same news feed here on my Facebook page and the Travis Larson Band Facebook page, and I think Jen's Facebook page, and also our YouTube and all that stuff. So check that out. And what else? There's one other thing. Oh,
Happy
go grab
birthday to Holly's mom. Had just turned 80 3 or 4
Oh, wow.
days ago. Sounds like.
Nice. And also, Tommy Quirk's son just became a teenager today, 13.
Yay.
Yeah.
Oh
Happy
boy.
birthday.
1 year
know.
younger than the Ready to Change album.
Yes, right.
And also go get Matt's beautiful article on Eddie Van Halen. He did a great job. We had a really heartfelt, conversation the other day where we sat around and reminisced about Van Halen and the magic of music. So
Nice.
check that out. And I don't know, am I missing anything besides, I don't know. I'm going to go have a bunch of pumpkin pie.
Okay.
Nice.
Thank
And
you,
play my-
everybody. It's nice to
Thank
see
you,
you.
everybody.
Feels like I haven't been here in forever.
Happy Thanksgiving. We'll see you guys next week.
Happy Thanksgiving.
This is Egg Slicer, by the way.